beach is basically off limits because the water is so dirty and so unclean. There was an oil spill, but I'm surprised and shocked so far because everything I've read and everything I've heard about Singapore being more green and sustainable, it's a lot to do actually more with just reducing Singapore's negative effects. There's a lot of talk about the urban heat island effect. There's a lot of talk about the air conditioning here because it's quite hot. There's a lot of talk about the trash and how much trash is generated. And these seem to be, of course, things that big cities, especially modern society and big cities, really need to survive. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of negative impacts from those things. And it sounds like Singapore is doing a pretty good job of trying to deal with those negative impacts. But in reality, it still is just lessening those impacts. And it still sounds like they're quite a far ways away, maybe another 10, 20 years from really getting some of those things under control. And it really makes me question and wonder if Singapore, this super wealthy city, now, of course, I know they didn't just magically one day become wealthy. It's been many, many decades and even generations to get where they are today. But if even they are still struggling and having a challenge with this stuff, where it probably will take them until 2050 to really get it under control, what sort of chance does the rest of the world have? That really gives me pause and gives me great concern about how are we going to get the climate crisis under control. What I often try to come back to from a positive, optimistic perspective is there are a lot of good efforts that are being made. There are a lot of good things that are being done, and people do care. I mean, you can call it green capitalism or whatever you want, but more and more businesses do want to do these things because it's in their best interest. It's in their financial interest to make these changes. And I also hope that scientists and climate scientists and researchers, they create these models, they create these predictions, they try to analyze the problem as good as they can. But at the end of the day, we're all still flawed. Stuff that was true and scientifically true just a few generations ago has been thrown out today. And so I still hope that perhaps we don't understand the greatness and the power of the planet and Mother Nature as well as we think we do, and that the planet is more resilient and more resistant to what we're doing than we think. But it is still really challenging to stay positive and optimistic. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do Pursuit of Better and make these videos and travel to these places, is to learn about the best things that we can do and some of the best practices to make a good difference. But it is definitely disappointing to come here during the hottest point of the year, where it's just, you kind of can't survive here without air conditioning. And then you come over to the beach, come over to this beautiful beach, and all you see are these endless amounts of these big ships just hanging out here, creating some pollution. From what I understand, beach is basically off limits and people can't even use the beach because there was an oil spill. So can't even really enjoy the beach because the water is so dirty and so unclean that people have to be cleaning it up from the trash. It is very depressing and is a bit challenging to see it like this. So I don't know. What gives you hope? What gives you inspiration? And we have to believe in something, right? And we have to have hope. So what gives you hope?